Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Day to Day, the podcast where we explore the joys and challenges of everyday life. I'm Emma.
And I'm Alex. Whether it's personal growth, navigating relationships, or just tackling the chaos of the day, we're here to talk about it all and hopefully help you along the way.
So grab your coffee, tea, or whatever keeps you going.
And let's dive into today's episode.
Today, we're diving into a topic that I'm sure many of our listeners can relate to: ineffective communication, especially those situations when people just refuse to say things clearly.
Oh yeah, you know the kind of vague feedback like, it's missing something, or you've heard my request, figure it out yourself. It's the kind of thing that drives people nuts.
Absolutely. And it's not always intentional. Sometimes people just don't have the bandwidth to be more explicit. Like, imagine your boss reading your message mid-meeting and shooting off a cursory yes.
Yeah, or perhaps they're just overwhelmed with tech, like some older colleagues who might find digital communication a bit tough to navigate. But what do you think about this idea of implicit contracts in communication?
Well, it happens when people assume the other party just gets it, right? Like unspoken expectations. You might think you're clear, but for the listener, it's all blurry.
Exactly. And it gets complicated when roles are involved. An employee expecting direct instructions from a manager who believes in employee autonomy. It's like trying to play a game without knowing the rules.
And there's the classic let's wait and see from a leader. It's ambiguity disguised as indecision, sometimes because they themselves haven't received clear direction from above.
Oh man, the passing of responsibility down the line. It reminds me of Papi Jiang's video showing this cultural exchange of roundabout replies. It's like verbal ping pong with no conclusion.
Right? And then there's the power play of controlling information to maintain status, like how some leaders use ambiguity to subtly reinforce their authority.
Yeah, power dynamics at its finest. This subtle language control can feel like an invisible form of pressure or dominance, almost like deliberate confusion.
And it's not just from top down, even between peers, like when someone intentionally withholds information during a project to make themselves look better. That's just next level frustrating.
That fits into what David Graeber talks about as interpretive labor. It's that extra mental effort spent guessing another's true intent. Add in the stress from power imbalances, it's exhausting.
So true. And while it's easy to say they should just be clearer, those of us in the workplace end up shouldering that interpretive labor. It's a real mental workout.
Right? And it's so easy to feel responsible if we don't decipher it correctly. So let's talk solutions. Any tips on navigating these murky waters?
Sure thing. One is to just ask directly and explicitly, like, hey, when you say it needs more, do you mean it needs more of XYZ? It sometimes forces clarity in return.
And if you're in a place where questioning isn't welcomed, maybe just summarize what you believe was discussed to ensure there's record of consensus.
Also, multiple channels of communication help. If direct messages aren't getting clear responses, maybe face-to-face or even phone calls can bridge that gap.
You can also have non-formal dialogues, like over coffee or in between discussions. Sometimes relieving the formality gets you the clarity you need.
And while it's important to push for clarity, sometimes we just have to accept that uncertainty is part of the game. Train ourselves to be okay with not yet answers.
Ultimately, while we are navigating these conversations, it's crucial to remember not to burn out trying to translate vague instructions. Sometimes it's just not on us.
It's about balancing insistence on better communication and being prepared that things will sometimes remain ambiguous. It's like a dance, you know?
Definitely a dance. So listeners, have you faced scenarios of unclear communication recently? What are your strategies for ensuring clarity?
Share your stories and tips in the comments or join the conversation online. We'd love to hear from you.